I forgot to say we didn't need him. You're bringing up Steph Curry, and they just was on that promo 4,000th three-pointer. We passed on
show of hands
twice in the National Basketball Association draft.
Didn't we draft a bunch of post players with those picks?
We drafted the greatest smile in the history of the National Basketball Association.
Johnny Flynn.
He smiled. And not to mention Ricky Rubio, who had a pretty charming smile himself.
He still does.
And he still does. I wonder how he's doing.
I think he's just living in Spain,
living the good life in Spain these days?
I think so.
He's not playing anywhere, is he?
I don't think so.
As far as we know. Lavelle E. Neal III apparently is still milking this spring training trip. He is, I don't know if he's in Port Charlotte or Fort Myers or Tampa or wherever, but I know he's not here. Where are you in Florida this afternoon?
I'm at Hammond Stadium in Fort Myers, waiting for the Twins to play host to the Tampa Bay Rays, while the other half of the Twins head to Sarasota, I believe, to play the Orioles.
How close are we to the start of the regular season? I haven't even checked the calendar.
It is less than 2 weeks now, my boy.
Less than 2 weeks? That's absurd. I don't have enough baseball in the brain right now. That's part of the reason we have you on, is to try. That's what we talked a decent amount about it last week, and I will get to it again eventually with you, but I do want to start with the Big Ten news that not only is the Gopher job available, men's basketball, the Iowa job is now available. Franz Red Face is no more. He has been dismissed after 15 seasons. He is the winningest coach in Iowa basketball history, the third longest tenured Big Ten coach. But he got dismissed. A 15-year record of 297 and 207, 143 and 141 in Big Ten play, ranked nationally in 8 seasons, but they never reached, I guess I didn't realize this, they never reached the Sweet 16, that drought ongoing since 1999. And the nugget that also got my attention that kind of I think is related to here is that the Hawkeyes averaged in paid attendance this year 9,161, which is their lowest attendance average since 1964-65. And the Gophers were at their lowest average since, I think, the early 70s, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere going back half a century. So sometimes that tells the tale. What do you want to do? What's your best advice to Mark Coyle on who you replace Ben Johnson with?
That's a great question. First of all, I just want to say I think it's rather remarkable that Fran McCaffrey is the longest tenured coach, because I remember George Raveling was there for a few years, and that Dr. Tom was there for a while, and of course there's the great Lute Olson. So for him to be the longest tenured out of that group is
well, I don't know. He was the winningest coach from there, third longest tenured Big Ten coach active. In terms of how many,
the winningest coach too,
and the winningest coach,
because Lute had some great teams. He had Stack and Boyle. He did Ronnie Lester. He had went to the Final Four with Ronnie Lester, I believe. Before he went out to Arizona. So if I'm like Mark Coyle, first of all, I look in the mirror and ask myself, do I know what I'm doing? Okay, because it's not all his fault that the Gopher basketball malaise that they're in right now, because he wasn't around for
he inherited some of it, right.
Because just communicating with people through email, phone conversations, and reading Twitter. Everybody's like, "Well, we need a name coach," and I'm like, "Well, you hired a name coach in Tubby Smith. How'd it work out?" And then, well, we need an accomplished coach or up and coming coach. Well, you had two. You had Dan Munson. Who I thought had coached at Gonzaga longer than 2 years before he joined the Gophers, but it was just 2 seasons. But he got to the regional final in that second year. He was up and comer. Richard Pitino was up and comer. But what we know from Mark Cole right now is that he's made 2 mistakes. Mistake number 1 was firing Pitino, and mistake number 2 was hiring Ben Johnson. I hate sounding so crass about that, because Ben's a nice human being who was given a tough challenge.
Very.
And for him, it ended up being insurmountable. Trying to, stir the echoes of great Gopher basketball of past years.
Well, at a time, Lavelle, when a revolution is taking place in the game, right? NIL comes in, a number of things. There's a number of factors, although I would argue that's why, whether you have anticipated that as an AD or not, what was coming, That's why you do not hire a guy without any experience in that role here. That to me is all on the AD, who wanted to go cheap. I think that was a big part of it as well, and didn't want to think bold enough and big enough and spend enough. So now he can't get this one. He's got to get this one right at some level, does he not?
Yeah, Jay can't. Like I said, look in the mirror and ask himself, can I be the teacher and the student at the same time? Can I show my leadership ability while also learning from my past, which is putting Ben in that situation and not hiring someone maybe who can inject some credibility or at least some a person who has experience running a Division I program. That did not happen here. I feel bad for Ben in the situation he's in. I would like to see what he could do if he had the financial support that the next coach is going to get with this revenue sharing. But it is what it is, and Qual felt he needed to go the direction he had to go into. So the other thing too, this right now there's not a lot of not a long list of candidates, so I'm a little concerned about that. I mean, Kevin Keats just got let go by North Carolina State. Does that do anything for you? I'm not sure.
No.
Tom Crean's been out there. He's a name.
Yeah, I'd consider him. I would at least consider him.
Although he was walking a tightrope in Indiana for like the last 4 years of his tenure there,
and in Georgia, it ended badly. It ended very badly for him at the University of Georgia after Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, and what does it take to operate a successful, Power 4 conference basketball program now? Do you need to also hire a general manager to help with NIL or fundraising? And by the way, I got to put some of that on Qual as well. I keep hearing, PJ coming out talking about NIL. Ben is not like that, but to me, the AD should be front and center for some of these revenue-generating efforts here. But I never hear about Qual being out there or engaging with people. I just don't know. So, did he have anything enlightening to say during his video press conference today?
No, he rarely does. I mean, it was fairly basic stuff, and I think one of the things that Guardsy and I talked a lot about, and this is there's two really important parts to this story. As you mentioned, you sit here and go, well, there's anybody that blows you away that you're really excited about, and the irony is, it's not just the University of Minnesota these days that is trying to figure out which way do I go. Indiana University is trying to figure out where it should go, right? They're talking about people that at IU, a lot of fans are bored with, where you say, well, this doesn't seem like a home run hire. Basketball landscape has changed so dramatically so my point is if Indiana is having trouble figuring it out, then Minnesota, obviously not as attractive a job, even if Indiana is not the blue blood it once was, is even in a more challenging position because there just doesn't seem to be that many candidates where you go, whoa, well, this is the guy. Don't look no further. This is exactly the way it needs to go.
And here's the thing the other thing too is that when you make a decision like this, don't you have a short list of guys? Don't you always keep a list of potential coaches that you update every few months or so, or after every cycle? That you can start with once you start looking for another coach. And, we can come up with just a few names that are interesting. I hope he didn't just fire Ben knowing I had to start without having a list of guys to look at. And I want something beyond the Nico Medveds and the Ryan Saunders and all the people that you could throw out there with Minnesota ties. I want to see what type of nationwide figures that he could possibly have. Because if he doesn't, then to me that's mistake number 3. Firing a guy unless you know how you're going to navigate or who you're going to reach out to bring in for at least an interview. So I hope he's got that covered at least here. Like I said, I just think that firing Pitino ended up being a mistake, and probably giving Ben this role 3 or 4 years too soon ended up backfiring. And now the program's at rock bottom. And Ben, everybody thought the Gophers were going to finish last in the conference this year. Give Ben credit. They played as hard as he could. They had some bad losses, no doubt. But they got to the Big Ten tournament, and there were not a lot of people thought they get to the Big Ten tournament, and maybe he'll be better off for the experience. But moving forward, this next hire, Cole's got to nail this, or he should already have some heat on him. But it'll be even more if he can't nail this next hire.
Yeah, that's all fair. I think. Look, part of there's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, though, on the game of, well, he didn't finish with the worst record in the Big Ten. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, part of that was, well, why was that? Why were they ranked that low? Look, here's the bottom line. His winning percentage in the Big Ten, Lavelle, is 100 percentage points worse than the last three coaches, none of whom had even reached 500. If you're winning at 25% of your Big Ten games, you got to go. I'm sorry. And I know there's a lot of other reasons and there's a lot of other circumstances that did not work his way, but that's not tenable. It's just not. And I didn't see enough where I'd say, oh, here's the offense. So here's what they're trying to do. I mean, hell, they had a game this year where one of his players forgot what the score was, and he ended up fouling in a situation where he thought the lead was 3 instead of 2. So, look, we all like Ben. We all respect Ben, and we're all rooting for Ben on a number of levels. But I think there was more than enough evidence to say, to me, as I said yesterday, the indictment on the AD isn't in firing him. The indictment is hiring him, because he hired him at a time where it was a reach then. If he was ever going to be ready, I don't think he was ready yet for a job this challenging. And he made that leap in part because I think he kind of wanted to save some money as well. But let me get to the other part of this, which kind of speaks to your point on Medved. So in this town, it's a pro town. You know this. You've been here long enough to know this. Isn't the challenge, this is what makes this a really difficult job in terms of who you hire. It's almost like here to be, when you're looking for a University of Minnesota basketball coach or even a football coach, you not only need a coach who can win enough, you need a coach who's got an outsized personality, who has a certain aura about him that brings some attention in a town where it's not automatic, where you're fighting with the Vikings and you're fighting with the Timberwolves and you're fighting with the Twins in good days in the Wild. And that's not what I think he represents. That's the issue. Is Medved, by all accounts, is a good coach. I think everybody says that. But I know that he has been eliminated at some other bigger basketball schools, because of the concern about personality, because of the concern about handling that other aspect of the story. And that's the tough part about this thing. You almost need, I think you need both in a pro town.
I think that's fair to say. I'm guessing the argument's going to be that Tubby was that guy when he gave him a shot. Of course, that wasn't a core hire, of course.
Right.
It didn't work out, and Tubby ended up not being that guy. I don't know who else, because when you talk about big personalities and flamboyance, that also equals dollar signs to me.
Absolutely.
They better be ready to make the financial investment to bring in someone like that who can be the major domo of the program and be a face in this challenging sports landscape here. Where you are a large college that's not, you're not in Lubbock, you're not in Blacksburg, you're not in Tuscaloosa. It's not like you're the biggest show in town. Right. You're like the 5th or 6th on the pecking order, and so you got to fight for yours. So you raise a good point there. And I mean, to me, that's a recruiting advantage to me. If I'm coaching University of Minnesota, I'm telling these kids, look, you're not stuck on some outposts. You're in the middle of a major city. The opportunities to you are going to be fantastic. The summers here are great. You can make connections here that if sports doesn't work out, you could be, put in a great situation for the rest of your life. And you're not going to get bored. That'll be my selling point. And that'll be my selling point to the coach, too. Look, you'll be in a big city. You won't be, in a small town. Maybe some people are enamored with being a big fish in a small pond, but there's also the enticement of being a big fish in a larger pond. And if you want to go after that type of coach, that's going to be kind of the carrot you're going to have to dangle.
Yeah, that's what's difficult. So we'll see. I think most people think, the idea is to try to move fast. We'll have to see if how quickly this thing goes. And again, what's interesting is Iowa. A lot of people think Iowa made the decision on Fran's red face. because they want to steal Drake guy from possibly being tempted by Indiana, for example. So that's now and I don't know if I said to Guards earlier, I don't even know if Minnesota is competing with those schools for the same coaches. I wish they were. I'd like to think they were. I don't know that they were. Crean is another one you and I have talked about, the Guards and I have talked about before, who's been on this show a few times, and I think he's absolutely hungry to get back in. You'd have to do some vetting on him because it ended badly at Georgia. It was not. He had really good seasons at Indiana until he didn't. But again, they would now take what he did in Indiana in a minute. It's all relative. 16s. Yeah, exactly. So, but at Georgia, it didn't end well. You find out exactly what happened there. I don't even remember if he lost a bunch of players or what took place. But he's hungry. I still think, he definitely wants to get every indications he wants to get back into it. And I think he's a bigger personality than some of these other guys, but then he's also quirky. Some people kind of like him. Some people are kind of put off. So I don't know what to think about where he might fit in, and I have no idea whether the AD cares about him at all.
Do you know who I would call? Who? Just in case? Because I know the person got out because he kind of saw where things were headed, but maybe being a couple years removed from this will rekindle the flame for him to try to get back and make it work. You know who I would call?
Who?
Jay Wright.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have no problem with the phone call, but I just have a feeling if Jay Wright actually wants to get back in it, he ain't gonna. It's not like he's been waiting and clamoring to hang out in Dinkytown. That would be my gut. What do you think, Archie? Do you think?
I would call him too. I don't think it would last very long.
I think it'd be probably a short phone call. Yeah, yeah, it wouldn't hurt.
We have good tailors here. We know that's important to him.
Oh, he's one of the best dressed head coaches ever.
Yeah, there's no arguing with that, is there? No arguing whatsoever.
I mean, you might have, or at least have a conversation with him about which are you looking for here? Who would fit the mold of what I'm looking for here? Use him as a consultant.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that. That's a really good point. All right. Well, we'll see where that goes. To be continued. Who knows? You wrote a very depressing piece. I'm glad you got to it, though, because it's an important subject on the ownership situation regarding the Twins and the idea that all that nonsense we were that was reported to us that, hey, everything's by the time we get to opening day, fast track, new owner, new era, the whole bit. And now we'll be lucky if we have a new owner by spring training 2027. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I glean, and as I pointed out, they still are trying to work along this mid-season timetable. I don't see it right now, unless things could accelerate rapidly here if they are able to find a group that's able to assemble to take over leadership of this organization. I don't see it right now. And as it was explained to me, Ishbia would have been an easier transaction because MLB already knows him because of his involvement with the White Sox, and that would have helped. So once he pivoted to Chicago, part of me still wonders if he was trying to kind of get the White Sox attention when he
conspiracy theory
looked at the Twins or not.
Maybe
that's just a hypothesis on my part, but. And I want to say that back to the drawing board because they continue to argue, they continue to maintain they've got interest from within and outside the Twin Cities, and that they're working with other groups. So I want to see if they can matchmake at this point. I think that's going to be a key development here going over the next several weeks is that who can they put together here to make this work. And one person I talked to who was a multimillionaire told me he said, I think you would have a different story to write in the next couple of weeks. And so I'm kind of trying to figure out what does that mean and actually what's on the burner now.
Well, can you spill anything? What do you think? You got any ideas?
I don't have any ideas on that one unless he knows that there's some people talking to each other about joining forces that could come into fruition in the coming weeks that could still make that 6-month or mid-season timetable a real thing. But I'm not sure. At any point, at this point, I'm just trying to read off any sort of sign I'm getting from whoever I talk to. So,
well, and you still think it's more likely that it's someone in town or out of town?
I think it's 50-50. I'm not sure if it's going to be in town or out of town. I think anything is possible at this point. Dan, here's what I think. I think that by the end, there will be someone local as part of the ownership group. Will they be majority owner? Right. Maybe, maybe not. I think at least they would be a minority owner or just be part of a small group of limited investors. There'll be some local tie here, I believe. So I was told that Ishmael was busy putting together a type of a bunch of local people to be on the back end of this thing. So I think that will still happen with whoever ends up owning the majority of the team.
So any last thoughts about the team? I mean, like I said, I kidded with you last week, I think, about overconfidence being our only enemy. And it's all this, everybody's picking us to win the division. Everybody's healthy. So, I mean, are we a team without a weakness, or are we getting carried away here? Or is there, what reason is there to believe that it can all stay together? I mean, because some of the ball guys, here's what's weird. If you go back to last season, here's what I heard from some of the ball guys. You might have even been one of them. That basically, when they collapsed, we shouldn't have been that surprised because they were not as good as their record indicated, and we were all kidding ourselves about how good they could really be. So if that's
that wasn't me.
That wasn't you? Okay, well, whoever it was, because if that's the case, it's like, well, then why are we favored in most circles to win the division this year? So what are we at this point, and can we count on, because I assume it has to start with health, isn't the onus on these guys to prove they can stay healthy rather than for us to assume that they will stay healthy?
Absolutely. And I'm not saying the Twins don't have any holes. I'm worried about, I wrote a story a week ago, somewhat concerned about the defense, because with the Gold Glover leaving at first base, I'm afraid that there's going to be a bunch of bounce throws that are going to get by the first baseman this year, and they don't have the range in the outfield that they've had over the last couple of years either, especially with Max Kepler gone. So I think defense may just be above adequate at best. I don't think they're going to have elite gloves behind the pitcher staff, which could be a factor. I think their left-handed relief setup is going to be in trouble because I believe in Danny Colon, but I like the other 12 guys they have. That is Corey Provis. I believe in the other 12 guys they have in the bullpen. But I like the offense, though. I think they're going to hit. And health is a big component, man. So I think every day from here to opening day should be viewed as a victory, because if they can get this team at least to the starting gate healthy, they got a chance to get off to a fast start. And so, and then, hey, man, I talked to one of the coaches the other day, and he was like, man, I hope we get off to a good start. When they get the pins, excited, engaged, there's so much concern, right. We try to ignore it, but the sales out there, and we want fans to just focus on the team and the good things we're doing, so we want to get off to a fast start. So I know that sentiment's out there, even though they won't say it on the record. And if they can get, like I said, they can get to opening day without any significant injuries, that's the right step they need to take.
How much longer are you going to be down there?
I come back Wednesday.
Oh, so it's over Wednesday.
So I got 2 weeks. I got 2 weeks down here.
That's a heck of a gig, man. And it's paid, right? They pay you.
Here's the thing. I was supposed to be off. Like I purposely scheduled some vacation time at the end of this, but I wanted to. I was supposed to be off after Wednesday for about a week. And I said, well, I got to get an update on the ownership situation in the paper somehow. And then I was like, well, I might as well write something for Sunday about the stuff I've seen since I've been here. So I just found my last story. So I got 4 days off now before I fly back.
That's fair. That's okay.
So look out, Fort Myers.
It's a little. I mean, it's like I said, it's starting to come off like a junket a little bit. Like you just sort of like. I mean, you barely wrote. How many days did you write since you've been down there? Like 4 total?
I've written 6 columns, sir.
Oh, in all of 2 weeks? Boy, are you okay?
And I picked up enough stuff for 2 other columns.
You did?
So.
Well, I would hope so. My God. I mean, come on. This is Royce would have written 20 columns in the amount of time you were down there. And 5 sidebars and 3 profiles.
Possibly, but
right?
I've been at the ballpark every day.
Oh, right.
I probably will be at the ballpark tomorrow, even though I have no reason to be, but I'll probably stop by tomorrow. But I have been at the park every day. I've done road trips. I was at Port Charlotte for the Rays game, and I was at JetBlue yesterday for the Red Sox game. And where else did I go to? Did I go to Sarasota? I think I went to Sarasota too. So I've been on the road, man. I've been following teams. They're getting used to seeing me again.
Last item, because I don't know if we covered this with you last week. I don't even know if it was a story last week. Your compadre Scoggins, I think, is in the majority that says, stop with this A-Raj nonsense. The blueprint that you have set up is fine. You've done a great job in free agency. That gives the kid a better chance to succeed right from the get-go. Hand the keys to J.J. McCarthy. Stop pretending about this silly flirtation with A-Raj. Are you in the Scoggins camp, or would you be ready to jump into the toxic, polluted, deep end with Aaron Rodgers?
And it's going to be more toxic and more polluted once you climb into bed with him, because he's not going to change his ways. He's not going to change at this point. He had every reason to change last year after coming off the torn Achilles, to be contrite and be a little more kinder, gentler.
Humble.
But no, what does he do? He goes to Europe when he's supposed to be at camp with the team. It's just, it's basically a middle finger to the coaching staff and the front office right off the bat. So no. He's like, why do you want that in your club? If you try to hit him over the head with the Vikings culture shield, it's going to shatter, because he's already been established as being a rather mercurial, I don't want to say weird, but he's a kind of a lone ranger. He's an odd duck. Why do you want to bring that in the middle of your clubhouse, especially when you got a young, impressionable kid, J.J. McCarthy, sitting there trying to learn everything, So I would stay away from A-Rod, y'all.
You're done.
I would try Ryan Tannehill. I call Joe Flacco. I don't know who else is out there. I would not even. I would have Josh Dobbs as a backup before I have Aaron Rodgers in a purple uniform. Please don't do it. Just because it happened with Favre doesn't mean it's going to happen with Rodgers. Stay away.
They're thinking about it. I'm telling you, they're thinking about it.
Yeah. No, Diana Rossini, they're not thinking about it.
Seifert agrees with Rossini. Doesn't mean he's predicting that he'll end up here, but he believes they are tossing that around at TCO. And basically what's happening right now is A-Rod is just waiting for them, because he would rather, for all the obvious reasons, come here than go certainly to New York or even to Pittsburgh. So he's willing to wait it out, because this would be his only other choice. And so he's waiting for them. He's waiting for KOC to show he's got the cojones to take on, with this great culture shield, the ultimate toxic personality in the National Football League, and to turn him into a contented puppy dog.
Yeah, I don't see it. I blame the University of Illinois for this, because if you ask Rodgers about it, he thought he was going to the University of Illinois, but apparently either they never offered a scholarship or pulled a scholarship, and that put him on the track to go to Cal. And he came out of Cal a conceited, arrogant person.
Yeah.
And the NFL's worse for it. Oh, he is a Hall of Famer. Maybe he wouldn't have been a Hall of Fame quarterback if he had been through the Illinois system. I got to consider that as well. But he would have been a different human being, a little more grounded, a little more gregarious, a little more self-deprecating, and he would have gotten far that way.
On that note, we got to go. Thank you. Enjoy your vacation. I mean, somebody did text. It's like after 2 weeks in Florida, you need a vacation. It's like that does seem to be a little bit of a contradiction, but.
Well, I had a scheduled amount of days to work.
Oh.
And I said, well, if you don't mind, if I could stay in the house and take some PTO at the end of my scheduled time to work.
Oh, okay.
Which ended up being, I added 2 extra days of work onto it. I picked up another story.
Will you be heading out to the beach during your off days?
I was at the beach this morning.
Were you really?
Well, I'm doing my column for Sunday. Part of my column for Sunday is on Fort Myers Beach recovery, 3 years after Ian.
Okay.
And it's just starting to look like the old Fort Myers Beach as much as it can.
The glory days, huh?
Yeah. So, because the mayor of Fort Myers Beach actually went to Spring Lake Park High School.
Local angle.
So, yeah, exactly. And the Margaritaville Resort that dominates that area now was developed by Minnesotans. So, Minnesotans are stakeholders in the revival of Fort Myers Beach.
Sounds like you're selling this to your editors, not to us.
That's it. Yeah.
Will you swing up?
Man.
Hey, will you swing up to Clearwater and see how that's doing? Because I'm supposed to go there in a couple of weeks. Can you go check in on Clearwater Beach for us?
You will. That's a haul, man. That's like a 3-hour drive. It takes like 5 different highways to get there.
You got time. I bet Coomdog's
Scout it
back
out
there.
for him. Yeah.
My plan right now is to head to downtown Fort Myers tonight and then Naples tomorrow night.
Lava, we got to go.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us. We
Enjoy your
appreciate
vacation.
It. Have fun, Lava. Don't get tired.
Okay, later.
Lavelle E. Neal III tuckered after close to 2 weeks. It's spring training, so what do? You take some days off. Makes all the sense in the world, doesn't it? Wolves back home and in action tonight on the flagship. The Orlando Magic, the opponent. Where are the Magic right now in the Eastern Conference playoff picture?
I don't think in
Are
a
they
very promising spot.
They haven't. A lot of people like them as an up-and-coming team. Now, they still have one significant injury, do they not?
Yes. I can't remember. I know Suggs is out for the season.
Suggsy, yeah. There may be somebody else.
They're in the eighth spot, 31 and 36.
They play what those in the business call a very grimy game. They like to muck it up. They like to make it physical. They like to make it hard on the opposing team. So we'll see. The Wolves, one thing that I think is important, we've all kind of the last several days been celebrating their resurgence, but there's a danger to this that, then you suddenly start getting comfortable again. I hope they are enjoying the way they're playing so much that they'll just kind of keep doing it the way they have done
That's
it.
the
Tim
idea.
Conley is going to join us tentatively, we think, about 5 o'clock or so at the top of the hour, and we'll talk about his view on the what's changed with the club, what he likes about the club, and as we hit really we're kind of in the stretch run now, right? The Lakers are in maybe free fall because they lost. Was it last night or the night before to the Bucks? And
they've lost 3 in a row.
They've lost 3 in a row, and they're playing tonight, and they're sitting everybody tonight, including Luka, who I think had 40 last night in a losing cause.
Mo Wagner, the other Magic player that's hurt.
Okay, that's right.
And then Banchero was hurt at the beginning of the season, but he's back, I think.
So I guess what I'm saying is the Lakers, it looks like they're sacrificing, they're almost conceding that they're going to be at 4 in a row. I don't know how far they can fall, and obviously it depends largely how long LeBron's going to be out. The assumption is he's going to be back fairly soon. We'll see. The Wolves just have to keep putting pressure on all the teams in front of them, and the one surefire way to do this, and you can look it up, is to keep winning.
Yeah,
you keep winning, and you're gonna move up. You're gonna be in a position to move up for sure. I would think. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line is open 64686.
Memphis is back to being the 2 seed. They've won 4 in a row.
Yeah, because they've surged while the Lakers have faded a bit, right?
Yep.
And
Houston's also won 4 in a row. Golden State's won 6 in a row.
Is Denver 3?
Denver's the 3 right now, but they have identical records to Memphis, so there must be some tiebreaker there.
Yeah, Denver's weird. I can never discount them because of their big 2, especially Joker, but I don't like their depth at all.
They don't like their depth. They don't play any of it,
and they don't guard either. They're not a very good defensive team at all at this point. So we'll see. I mean, that's what we're all trying to figure out. How many teams are real contenders in the Western Conference? And I'll tell you what, man, the guy who's the local kid that Okie City has, the big man,
Chet Holmgren.
The game in Boston. That was the first game of the doubleheader. The late game was the Wolves in Denver, blowing out Denver, and in the first game was Okie City at Boston. Okie City had one significant player out, and obviously the Celtics also have one of their starters out, right? We just talked about he's got a mysterious illness. What's his name?
Oh, Porzingis.
Porzingis. But the X factor in that ballgame, Holmgren. If Holmgren plays like he played in that game,
23 and 15,
they're going to beat everybody. They even without the pedigree. They don't have, you could say, the feeling is, well, they don't really have the automatic number 2 scorer, but they guard everybody. And if he can produce like that, they're going to be tough to beat. I'm telling you, by anybody, because he changes the whole dynamic for them. And now they got the other big man from the Knicks,
Hartenstein,
which also helps because that takes some of the pressure off of Chet. We didn't have to do all the heavy lifting. But they've improved themselves. They're good. They're going to be.
They have the deepest team in the league.
There's no question.
Everybody likes to talk about the Wolves' depth with good reason. Oklahoma City's like the Wolves' depth on steroids right now. In that game, Jalen Williams didn't play. Caruso, who killed us from time to time, who's a nice pickup for them.
Very nice pickup.
Was sick. He didn't play either.
Right.
So they really only played about 9 guys, and they can play a lot more if they need to.
They don't. They just kind of keep coming at you. Guardsy just got back. Clearwater by the trade winds is looking good. Lots of businesses are back or close to open. Lavelle needs to get a map. The drive is 2 hours at the most.
Lavelle might be a right lane lingerer. He might just kind of take in the sights and not exactly hit it.
Clearwater Beach is almost fully recovered. I just got back from there, 98%.
All right.
Open and ready. Clearwater is fine, was there last week. Don't go to Clearwater. I was just there, and it is a rundown armpit.
Wow.
Food horrible. Stayed at the Hilton. It was $550 a night.
Yeah, we're not staying there.
And it was not even on the beach. It would have been, if it was not on the beach, I guess I should say, it would have been $150 a night. Well, I mean, then you are paying for being on the beach.
Location.
Now, I don't know how good a hotel it is. It sounds like maybe it was a little disappointing stay there for that family.
That's too bad. I stayed there years and years ago.
Very, very true. Jalen Williams is the guy. And by the way, Jalen Williams missed the Boston game. They won anyway, but he's out for an extended period. Now, if he's not available for them in the postseason, that does change stuff a little bit because he has been crucial to their fashioning the kind of historic, obviously Oklahoma City and Cleveland, regular season records, So we'll have to pay attention to that as well. Let's stay on schedule. We went long with Lavelle. Wanted to get plenty in with him, so let's stay back on schedule. We'll get a quick pause in here. Don't forget, no Top 5 at 5 today because we expect Tim Conley at the top of the hour and more Vikings conversation with Ben Gessling at 5:30. Go to Frenchie's, Guardsy, for the Super Grouper Sandwich in Clearwater. Frenchie's.
I've seen that place before.
Have you?
I don't think we've ever gone.
Frenchie's.
Thank you.
I feel like that my mind should be blown regarding this particular item, but I might need help from the science community to translate it. MIT researchers just turned skin cells directly into neurons without stem cell intermediate 100-fold efficiency boost. And they actually worked when transplanted into mouse brains.
Excuse me?
It sounds weighty, does it not? But I, for one, have no idea what it means. So is it as weighty and profound as some who've retweeted it suggest? What is this? For those of us who aren't that bright in science,
right?
Because we got some great science minds who listen to this show, can they translate to
help give their brain a break,
the everyday meaning of this?
Why they're doing this?
Why they're doing it? And
what's the means to this end?
What's the breakthrough?
Yep.
Here, what might this represent? MIT researchers just turned skin cells directly into neurons without stem cell intermediate 100-fold efficiency boost. And they actually worked when transplanted into mouse brains. It sounds like...
So it helps brain activity.
It's big. Yeah. It sounds like it'd be like, holy bleep. In fact, that's the term that the guy who tweeted this said. But I need some help on it. Absolutely would need some help because I don't want to be left out. I want to celebrate it. I need to better understand...
What are we doing with it now? Now that they can do this, what are the breakthroughs that we can expect?
What door might this open?
Well, neurons is just straight up brain stuff, right?
I thought so.
Isn't that the stuff that basically makes our brain go? Think we could use a boost? I know I certainly could.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we all could to a certain extent.
Maybe that's it.
Jay Wright was reportedly interested in the local university, but when he found out it was Minnesota, not St. Thomas, he hung up.
Wow. Well, St. Thomas might be in the Big East one day.
Here come the Tommies, though. Here come the Tommy fans.
Well, how many John Tower texts have you gotten? How many John Tower texts?
Not as many as I thought I might. Not as many as I thought I might.
Because he was kind of the Mike Grant version.
Yes, that's right.
And by the way, John Tower's a hell of a coach.
Yes, we're not mocking him.
A really good coach.
Yeah.
But would he be interested? I don't know. Would they be interested in him? I don't know. Tommy fans wouldn't take that well. And he's like Mr. Tommy. Player, coach, the whole bit.
Likely
Teacher.
treatment for things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, or even ALS, for example.
Thinking.
That's big.
Yeah, anything with the brain, obviously.
That would be very, very big. It means Doge can eliminate the Department of Health. We knew that was coming.
Which federal grant did they use to come with that breakthrough?
Yeah.
Because we're going to want to check on that.
Nice interview with Smith yesterday, so I turned into Stephen A. or alluded said, if Jones wins the starting job at Indy, Richardson should reconsider his career. That's preposterous and obnoxious. Oh, they must be talking about the fact that Daniel Jones signed he signed technically as a backup, but the Colts say we want to create competition for Richardson. I think his point is the texter is saying that Robert Smith made it sound like Stephen A. was more reasonable despite his reputation, and then he switches over to Stephen A. and he says something that preposterous and over the top, and he says, well, then how can I get to that more substantive stuff when he says things like that? But it's not a bad line. I mean, here's what you got to realize in talk radio, certainly talk TV. Don't take everything literally. That's an observation that yields for me a smile, right? It's the obvious. Daniel Jones hasn't been very good, and Richardson's supposed to be the franchise guy. And if he gets beat out by a guy who failed previously, then you have to reconsider his career. Well, I don't think he necessarily means he has to retire. He's just making a point that wouldn't be a helpful sign for a guy who was drafted as a franchise quarterback. I don't know how he was drafted high, wasn't he?
I think
Richardson?
third or fourth.
Yeah. So I think that's all that means. Is there a show businessy aspect to that? Yeah, there certainly is. Let's try to stay on schedule. We got a break coming up, and we expect, top of the hour, a conversation, our first in a while, with Tim Conley, the man who runs the Timberwolves basketball operation. Wolves back in action tonight on the Fan, beginning at, I'm assuming, 6:45 pregame. The opponents tonight, the Orlando Magic. Tim Conley.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something. Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Optimize your nutrition with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences, like Calorie Smart and Protein Plus. Factor's keto meals can help you lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks. Get started at factormeals.com/factor50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Weight loss with Factor Keto based on a randomized controlled clinical trial. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise.